Hey everyone, welcome to this tournament recap video. So if you watched our recent battle report, you'll know that I competed in a 2,000 point tournament. That was this past Saturday, so the tournament has ended. But I'm going to talk about my list in this video, talk about my overall experience at the tournament, go over each of the matches, and then talk about the end results and maybe talk some changes I would have made with my list. So like I said, it was a 2,000 point list. It was held at HFX Games in Dartmouth, 3-round tournament. It was a ton of fun. So in my prep game, I only had time to get one match in. Thankfully, my Salamander's opponent made some time to get out and get a good game in to help me prepare. On a whole, I felt happy with the list after that match. So if you watched that last battle report, I'm about to give a spoiler. So if you haven't seen it and you plan on watching it, I'd go and click away from this video. And now that you've clicked away and those who have seen it are staying here, the end score in that match was 95-30. So it performed really well. Lots of great Salamander units in that force as well. So to me, it was a good test to see how the list performed. I was happy with it. There's a few things I mentioned in that video that I would have liked to change. I have a Barb hero duel on the way. I think it hopefully will be arriving this week, so I didn't have it in time for the tournament, and I was really hoping to run the hero duel and the Dimmacairn, where I don't have two Dimmacairns. That would be the most ideal scenario. But yeah, so let me go over the list. I'll give you my thoughts before going into the tournament. I know the tournament's over now, but I'll give you my honest thoughts on each unit and what I was thinking with this list before going in. So it is 2 detachments. It is a battalion of Leviathan, and I'll talk about why Leviathan in a second, and then a patrol detachment of Kronos right here. So I'll go through everything that's in the list, and I'll talk about why I chose Leviathan. So in my HQ slot, I had a flying Hive Tyrant with Resonance Barb, monster spending claws. I finally got this one magnetized, so if you remember this Tyrant on the channel before, I finally got him magnetized so I can run him properly. So I made some custom monster spending claws for him as well. Just such a cool model. And before I go away from him, he also has Adrenal, Glands, Murderous Size, the Horror, and Psychic Scream for powers. In my previous battle that I had against the Salamanders before the tournament, I had Catalyst on a whole bunch of things. I don't really know why I did it. I was still mostly thinking redundancy, but I toned it down. So instead of having Catalyst on the Flying High Turn and my other 2 Psychers and Leviathan, I swapped that out for the Horror. And then I also have the Swarmlord with Onslaught and Catalyst for his powers. Then I have a Neurothrope in the list with Catalyst as well for his power. I'll talk about why some people might think there's 2 Catalysts, one too many, but a little redundancy there, but I'll talk about that when I go over the actual strategy behind the list. 6 Zoanthropes. I stand by these guys. Very, very happy with how they perform and what they can do on the table. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. 2 units of 3 Warriors, just with Scything Talons. I unconverted my old Lictors. I had like 8 of them back from Lictor Shame, and returned them to my base Warriors so I can properly run them. 2 units of 10 Termagants, and that makes up the Leviathan Battalion. Moving into the Kronos slot, we have a Neurothrope with Symbiostorm, obviously, 5 Hive Guard, a Lictor Exocrine with Dermic Symbiosis, so I paid an extra CP for that, being that Tyrant has Murderous Size, 3 Biovores, 3 Ripper Storms, and obviously lots of Spore Mines to lay down. Those are for the Biovores. I didn't actually bring them in the list. So there it is. Now I'm going to talk about my overall strategy and mindset behind my choices before the tournament, and then we'll show a few clips of the actual event. I didn't get as many pictures and video as I did last time. The previous tournament I was in was a 1,500 point tournament. This one was 2,000. So some of the games went pretty tight near the end, so I didn't have as much time to go around and film as I would have liked, but I still got enough. I think that I showed off most of the armies and a fair amount of the tables at the event as well. So one big thing I want to start with is why Leviathan. So it was between Leviathan and Kraken. Kraken obviously is the better choice with the speed and whatnot, but I've done well with Leviathan. I know you can't rely on rolling 6s, but with the units I brought, I felt that it would give me a little bit of extra durability. I had a Zoanthrope originally in the list, and then I took it out, and my reason for removing it is because I felt having the turn 1 Leviathan rolls there would help survivability just, well, not quite as much as the Zoanthrope potentially, but just the fact that the Zoanthrope only has that 6-inch bubble, well, 12 inch across, I should say, from it. I could cover most of the army, but if I did want to split things up, I would have to remove a few things, and then once everything starts moving around, it gets harder. So I did have a fair amount of synapse in this list, obviously, being that everything but the Dimmacaran and the Termagants weren't synapse creatures. So I was really hoping that would just help my survivability, because that was the big thing. If I can survive the first turn, in my opinion, it's likely going to be a good game for me. If I don't lose the Dimmacaran, and the Hive Tyrant is sitting in good shape, as well as these Zoanthropes, so they can launch forward. So that's why I chose Leviathan. I know Kraken is a little bit faster, a little bit more reliable in that regard. I know you can't rely on the 6s, but it's just, I've always found it holds, keeps me on objectives. Like I've had so many games where I'll have a warrior unit that is getting chipped down, but because of Leviathan, they save a few wounds, and being OBSEC, they can stick on the objective. So, and that's the reason I brought the warriors. I would have brought more Hormagaunts, and maybe some more Termagants, but the goal here was to have the extra synapse. And these guys are small units that can hide around and comfortably hold objectives. Not much offensive output, but again, with Leviathan, I'm trying to stay alive. That was my goal. So this is a key section that some people might think, well, Zoanthropes might not perform the best, but I've had a lot of success with them, especially running a unit of 6. You definitely have to go all or nothing when it comes to Zoanthropes, in my opinion. So I like going with the 6 for that flat 3 plus D3 more wounds to start. I find with the other big threats, such as the Dimmacaran, Hive Tyrant, or even the Exocrine, that the Zoanthropes get overlooked. And I mean, with those other threats, if the Zoanthropes get shot at with that 3-up invul plus Leviathan, there's a good chance they're going to wither quite a bit of damage. And if heavy shots are being wasted on them, I'm okay with that if it protects my other guys. Because until they get down to 3 Zoanthropes, they're still putting out it would be 2 D3 smites, which is nothing to scoff at. They also have psychic screens or secondary power. I don't think I mentioned that. So, and the whole goal with them is to head up to the middle, just kind of float around. The nice thing where there's 6 of them, they can position themselves too in such a way that they can not snipe at stuff, but it's closest visible for smite, right? So then you can kind of jank them around, position them so you can you can get certain angles that you can see the unit that you want to target in a way. So kind of tricky. I know it's not always reliable. Again, it depends on terrain and all that sort of stuff. But I've always had a lot of success with Zoanthropes. It's a favorite unit on a whole of mine. It's one that I feel very comfortable playing too. So that's the reason they made it into the list. So the Neurothrope, I brought him because my goal in this list overall. So let's talk secondaries very quickly. Engage on all fronts and deploy scramblers were the easy 2, being that I had the Lictors, the Rippers, then some very forward-moving units such as the Tyrant and the Dimmacaran. So I was planning on using Psychic Ritual as my set 3rd secondary, with the Neurothrope going up the Zoanthropes in the middle. So that was the plan. I would swap that out as needed, but it was good to, I had a 2nd or 3rd secondary set that I could kind of use, but again, it depends on who I play. So very situational, but that was my reasoning for bringing the Neurothrope. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the post-tournament chat about the list. So another thing that I had was the Tyrant. Giving him Reasonance Barb. The reason for that is I kind of wanted him to be a little bit of a psychic gunboat flying around. Where I gave him Psychic Scream, I know they're on the Zoanthropes too, but depending on who's positioned where, it gives him a little bit of extra damage output as he flies forward. I didn't have the points to put the Devourers on him. I did want them, but I felt that between everything else, my offensive output should be okay. I know this list against Hordes may struggle a bit, but I guess the hope is I don't play against them. I think I would be okay. I should be able to manage them. But and then obviously Swarmlord with the Dimmacaran, just moving forward and slinging him into targets as need be. So that's kind of the overview of the Leviathan detachment. The Tyrant, I wouldn't use him as much as a missile as I normally would with the Dimmacaran there. He was more of a support role again, doing some psychic stuff, flying forward to assist is where need be. So a little bit more of a utility role for the Tyrant. Obviously, as we move over to the Chronos section of the list, pretty standard stuff except for the Biovores. So I mean, like the Rippers, the Lictor, Exocrine, the Thermic, and Hive Guard, and then Neurothrope. Pretty standard stuff there. Not a lot to say. The only thing is potentially the Resonance Barb could have been a better choice on the Neurothrope, but we'll talk about that again after. So the Biovores, an interesting choice, I know. You don't see these in a lot of lists, at least the ones I've seen. I haven't seen Biovores a whole lot, but I've had a lot of success with the Biovores. They are a little points heavy for what they do, but again, depending on the terrain and whatnot, I'm sure you've seen this in battle reports. My poor Salamander opponent had been on the receiving end of these guys move blocking quite a bit. So that was the goal with them with the Spore Mines, is to move them just like literally in the backfield, and the unit moved, -1 to hit, and hope for the miss to place the Spore Mines. Because depending on terrain and the opponent I was playing against, I can really block in a lot of stuff. So if there's vehicles, dreadnoughts, vehicles, bikes, that sort of thing, they can actually do some blocking and then just get the Spore Mines in the way too. Or even if things like aren't vehicles and stuff that can move around terrain, just make things go a different route, kind of force the opponent to move as they want. And then also late game, the idea with them is hold them still and get some extra mortal wound chippage in. I know it's not a ton and not a lot to rely on, but late game, if there's a wound or two I really need to get down, then I can use the Biovores for that. So I don't know, would I swap them out for something else if I had it? Like again, if I had the Hero Duel or another Dimicaran, I think they would be first on the cutting block, but I say that now. Well, obviously we'll talk about everything after the tournament. How did they perform? So in my test match, they definitely proved their worth there. I was happy with them, and like I said, in previous games they have done work for me, and I've been very satisfied with the potential of the Biovores. But in a tournament setting with some different style lists, would they hold up? So that's the list, that's my mindset. So we're gonna jump into some clips, and I'm gonna show you the tables and the opponents I played against, and I'm just gonna talk about the matches on a whole and my mindset and kind of what went down. So before we do that, huge shout out to Todd for putting this event on, Roll the Initiative Gaming. It's so awesome, like I said, to get out with a bunch of like-minded gamers. The biggest thing about the events I've attended thus far is, I mean, I only played 3 people, but of the 16 or so individuals, there's not a single person that I wouldn't play again or be hesitant to play with again. So really good group of people, all there for a good time. Very smart players as well, learn a lot from all the games. So like I said, great community, very happy to become a part of it, and hopefully work and family life permitting, I can attend many more events in the near future. So let's take a look at the tournament. Alright everyone, so it's time for game one. Right up front I'm going to apologize for my mic. Hopefully you don't mind it and can get through it for this portion of the video. Getting a new mic is on my to-do list for new equipment for doing battle reports and whatnot, so I just have to bear with this on the computer. Secondly, I do apologize, like I said earlier in the video, for the lack of photos and videos at the tournament, but again, playing the 2,000 points is a little bit more time restricting than the 1,500 points I did previously. So here we are against Grey Knights. I have never played against Grey Knights before myself, let alone see a battle report with them in 9th edition. So I really didn't know what to expect going in. Obviously, I know they're more of an elite-based army and feature a lot of psychers. So couldn't remember everything in his list, but I went back and took a look at the tournament listing here. So very quickly, I may miss out on something. I'm just going to very quickly go through the list. So in the HQ slot, this is a there we go, a Battalion Detachment. We have a Grandmaster in Nemesis Dread Knight, Grandmaster Voltus, Lord Kaldar Drago. I think the Dread Knight was the Warlord, not that that really matters. In the troop slot, we had a Strike Squad, another Strike Squad, 2 units of Terminators. Then we also had an Apothecary, Paladin Ancient, Paladin Squad, Venerable Dreadnought, and then an Inceptor Squad. So that was all of the units that he had in his list. And for secondaries, as you just saw, I went with Engage, Deploy, Scramblers. The table was just too open for me to go with the planned Psychic Ritual that I had mentioned earlier in the video, attempting to use that with the Neurothrope. So I went with Assassinate because there was 5 characters in total, so I should be able to hopefully get at least a decent amount of points on that. And then he chose Assassinate, being that I have 4 characters, engage in all fronts, and also grind them down. So a little bit of incentive for me to stay on the upper hand here and ensure that I kill more than he does. So I ended up getting first turn. As you can see, deployment is lengthwise there. I think it was 10 inches up from that at the end. Obviously I had my Lictor and Rippers in reserve, and I actually ended up getting first turn, which was huge. So you can't actually see, but if you look down and see the Exocrine in the picture there, my Zoanthropes are in the very bottom corner there. If you can see straight down the table, there is a line of sight down to the, I think there was a Inceptor Squad there. Again, I may mess up some stuff here. I have never played Grey Knights before. There's an Inceptor Squad straight down from them. On the center objective opposing the Dimicaran was another Strike Squad. There was an Inceptor Squad there, I believe, with another Strike Squad in front of them. And behind there was the Paladin Ancient, and then in the back of that big building there was the Warlord Dread Knight, the Paladins, Drago, and Voltus, I think his name was, and the last Strike Squad on the far objective opposing the Bivores, if you look at my end of the table at the top. So like I said, I got first turn, which was awesome because right away I got the advantage on positioning, and the gist of this game, honestly, it was full board domination from the Tyranids early on. The list performed exactly how we wanted it to. Unfortunately for the poor Grey Knights, they being an older codex, their Marines are only 1 wound each, the Terminators being 2. So again, with the Zoanthropes, I took huge advantage of that. Like my Zoanthropes smited that first squad that was straight across from them off the table right away. Then between the Exocrine, Hive Guard, I was able to clear off a bunch of the strike guys straight across the Dimicaran. The Dimicaran leaped in, ate up a squad, jumped back into the middle of the table, the center objective there, right in front of the Dimicaran. And then on the other side of the table, it was pretty quiet over there. I just had my Warriors and Gaunts. Most of the game I just shifted forward, grabbed objectives. Swarmlord and the Tyrant advanced up to the middle of the table. He had, I think, Terminators and Terminators and an Apothecary and teleportation. And Biowar is actually coming in clutch this game, being the Dread Knight doesn't have fly or anything like that. I was actually able to use the Biowar's fire at the back by the Strike Force guys. You can see the top center of the image, and keep his Dread Knight actually locked up in that quarter pretty much the whole game. He did end up using Gate to zip on over towards the center objective in front of the Dimicaran in this photo, but my Zoanthropes are there, and he didn't make the charge against him, and they just ended up smiting him. I charged and just held him on that objective pretty much the whole game. So the gist of it was the Tyranids just headboard domination. Getting first turn was huge. Really gave me the edge over him in this match. So great opponent. Absolutely would love to play against him again. He means Custodes, another army I haven't played before. Very excited to take them on one day. So hopefully to get another battle in with my opponent. So the final score for this match was, I think it was 91, I believe, 91 or 92 or something like that. To actually, you know what? It's a live video here. I'm on my computer. I'm going to just quickly bring up the scores for each one. That way I can give you an accurate description on how each match went. So, in the first game, I should have this ready. I'm sorry. So it was 92-43, all said and done. So only missing out on some points with my engage early on. I had to give up some points just for positioning. I think it was first turn. But on a whole, like I said, the list performed very well. Did exactly what I wanted to with each unit. So put the Tyranids into the top table moving to the next match, which was really exciting. Like I said, the list performing exactly as I wanted to on the table. It was really good. It was a good confidence booster. This is my second tournament ever, second very competitive tournament ever. So it was a good confidence boost and made me feel good about how I was playing everything. So thus far, nothing I would change up with the list, I would say. I was very happy with how each unit did. And again, against an older codex, though, having the Marines only at 1 wound, with Zoanthropes and things like that, it does give a little bit of an advantage as well. Alright, so game 2 against Death Guard. Another army I've never played before, but I've seen tons of. So Mortarion was here in the list, so I'll go over everything that the Death Guard had inside the list. Again, not overly familiar, I'm reading off of the list I have in front of me here from the tournament, but so I apologize if I pronounce or miss any key points in the list. So he had Mortarion with the Supreme Command Detachment. That's what it is. So Mortarion was there. Then there was a Patrol Detachment of a Wordbearer Sorcerer. He had a Gift of Chaos, which spells the 9 Cultists. And he was there to give, I can't remember the exact reason, but there's a reason that he could like kind of cross chaos stuff or something like that. But he had warp time as well, which was the sucky part. Then another patrol detachment of Death Guard. Then we had a Death Guard Demon Prince. He didn't have wings, so if you saw in the picture originally there, he was just proxying that, which is no problem. Then he had some Plague Meridians, just 5 of them, 13 Poxwalkers, then a unit of 10 Poxwalkers, then 5 Blightlord Terminators, the old Tallyman, then 2 Bloat Drones, and then 2 Plague Burst Crawlers with the Entropy Cannons. I've learned right up front, before I get to the details of the match, those things suck. They don't suck, they're amazing, but they suck to play against. So we were playing the Scouring mission. So you saw the objectives. I had engaged on all fronts to play Scramblers. I went with While We Stand We Fight because knowing Mortarion was going to be up in my face, I wasn't sure exactly what the game plan was going to be against him. I knew if I went first, I would have to either deal with him or take out some other stuff, or if he went first, I got Mortarion right up in my face. So again, the ritual, it was a, well, not that it was a bad thing to plan for, but it was a very terrain dependent mission. and who I was playing against. So I went with While We Stand We Fight, which was Swarmlord, Dimmicaran, and then my Zoanthropes. Because on a whole, Swarmlord generally kind of can keep himself alive. I knew the Dimmicaran would be a rocket in, but then at the same time, I was pretty sure that he would take the While We Stand We Fight as well. And then obviously if Dimmicaran goes down, then Mortarion goes down. We more or less cancel each other out points-wise there. He chose While We Stand We Fight, naturally. So it was Mortarion, the Terminators, and one of the Plagueburst Crawlers. Then he took Engage on all fronts and raised the banners high. So it was the Scouring mission. Again, I apologize for the lack of pictures in this one. This is a very tense game. I think we finished with 2 minutes left in the game. So very, very tense match, as you're about to hear. So a fantastic match at that as well. So the clips you saw were the first one, the actual video clip, was early in the match, and then the other one was pretty later into the battle. So Mortarion, he got first turn, so he was in my face. Deployment wise, it wasn't too bad. I was pretty happy with how I deployed on a whole. I had screen of gaunts on either side, a huge citadel building right in front of the Hive guard that you're seeing in the center of the table. Center of the image, sorry, right there. So Mortarion couldn't actually get through to them, so I felt safe. I had gone screen on either side with some warriors for some insurance. I had the Dimmicaran. It really hit the top of the image. Right now, I had my Swarmlord. That's the Swarmlord space you can see there. I had Swarmlord Dimmicaran over on that side with the another unit of Glands and warriors screening over there. So Mortarion actually came flying in. The Plagueburst Crawlers did a fair amount of damage to my Hive guard right away. And then Mortarion, and one of the Plagueburst Crawlers shot some gaunts with Stubber Cannon, but he immediately was like, I shouldn't do that, because then he made his charge from Mortarion quite long. I think he needed a 10-inch charge, which he rolled double sixes for, so he made the charge in, easily killed off them, and then that was it. So then it was my turn to retaliate. So I dumped literally everything into Mortarion. It was a rough turn for me, not for any reason. Well, actually, for a lot of reasons, but not that I did anything bad, but just rough turn. It just the dice were not with me this time. So for smite damage, collectively between all the stuff you see in my list, I think I did a total of a wound. He either denied or I failed my psychic test, so really rough there. Then even shooting, I dropped Mortarion down to, I think, 7 wounds, I believe. 7 wounds, yeah, before the fighting began. Now, a big tactical error, in my opinion, and potentially it was a huge game changer for me. You can see right here, this is a photo of the end of his first turn. At the end of my first turn. So I jumped the flyer over on this side of the field, just kind of hanging out, not doing anything in particular. What I should have done is sent him into Mortarion with the Dimmicaran and the Swarmlord, and then had the Hive Tyrant ready to assist the Dimmicaran as he moved up the table, or take over his role as slingshotting forward with Swarmlord. Because in the end of everything, after even fighting twice with the Dimmicaran, Mortarion was alive with 2 wounds. Oh, he passed so many those Feel No Pains, and that -1 damage, oh, it is challenging. But yeah, so that was honestly right there, that put me on the back foot for the game. Even after the match, my opponent and I agreed that had I killed Mortarion in my turn, the match would have likely been in my favor, because then I would have been able to slingshot either the Dimmicaran or the Tyrant into his backfield, because those Pox or those Plagueburst Crawlers is what kept him in the game after Mortarion fell. So yeah, it was really rough. Mortarion dropped, I think, the Dimmicaran down to, I think, 2 wounds after his attacks as well. So even with the fighting back, the Dimmicaran did it collectively 5 wounds. Only a single attack actually made it through against Mortarion. So it was just really unfortunate luck there, but that's the nature of the game. Nothing you can do with that. So simply had to adjust. But again, having him get in there and hold me up early, that really put me on the back foot. I want this list to play aggressively, and I wasn't able to do exactly that quite as well. The mission also being hold 2 and hold 3 was really hard. Not having played Death Guard 2, my target priority is a little off. Looking back on this match as well, I really wish I had the Devourers on my Hive Tyrant. So actually, I'll give the score now. It's just easier than if I explain kind of the breakdown of how things fell apart. So it sounds really bad, but actually it was a very close game. It was 64-54 in favor of the Death Guard. So fantastic game, amazing opponent. I really hope I get to play against him again. Very smart player. Death Guard are a tough codex to play against. but it was a good challenge. It was a lot of fun. Really tested my skills as a player and pushed my limits with the list as well to see what I could do. But great match. So kind of what happened was getting boxed in like that early. I wasn't able to get on the objectives quite as I would like. He slogged forward with everything, and I wish I had the Devourers on my Tyrant so I could chew apart some of his Poxwalkers, or even more so the Chaos Cultists. They were in the back corner there. He did a fantastic job of zoning out against the Lictor and the Rippers. I couldn't get into his deployment zone, being the Scouring has like kind of that boxed deployment with a little space on either side, which sucks. But actually, in the end, though, my Lictor came in mid-table. He didn't shoot at it with anything. He charged it with the Poxwalkers. There were some Poxwalkers on his side objective. He used the strat that on 6 to do mortal wounds. He only did two mortal wounds. Rolled a ton of ones, killed off all but 4 of his Poxwalkers, enough to take him out of combat with the Lictor. This is the best part, is then the Lictor, in my turn, was able to, I spent the 1 CP I had, overdrove him to move twice and throw down the final scrambler, so kind of hilarious there. It kept me back in the game for sure. But yeah, definitely being locked up early on, it was tough to get up and grab those objectives. But like I said, that mistake of not having the Tyrant over to help out Swarmlord and the Termagants early on, it really hindered me, because then this Tyrant had to kind of jump sideways across the table, as you see right there, like more or less jump in front of the giant Citadel piece right there, rather than, and then get slung forward by the Swarmlord. Had he been on the other side, he could have jumped straight forward, then slung himself right into the back to take out the Poxwalker, which was one of, or not Pox, sorry, the Plague Burst Crawler. That was also one of his while we stand, so, because those things just were huge later in the game. They ended up taking the Hive Guard and really hurting the Exocrine as well. Swarmlord made it almost to the end. He ended up dying mid-table on turn 4 in that center objective on the top left hand of the image you see here, to some Plague Marines of all things. He had that character that makes you fight last. I can't remember the name or anything like that, so a little unfortunate there. But had I have made a my final invul, I would have been good, but nothing you can do there. But yeah, one other mistake I made too was near the end of the game in turn 4, I moved my Rippers onto his side of the table, near where his cultists were on the other side objective, opposite of the where the Poxwalkers were with the Lictor, just to get engaged. I should have held them back, because then in turn 5 I could have used them to move on to the central objective, which he had 2 Poxwalkers on. So I would have actually been able to move the Rippers over, steal that objective, which would have gave me my hold. I can't remember exactly, but I think it would have brought me up to, like, I think just getting ahead by a point. I can't remember. It was so close in the end, but it was just little tiny little things that I overthought, and just little adjustments like that could have went either way. But honestly, like I said, the fantastic game. Both tactically played very well on both sides. Like I said, I was on the defensive foot pretty early on in the match, which was no problem. That happens, and then how you react to that really determines how well your list will perform. So like I said, great game. 64 for the Death Guard to 54 for my Tyranids. So left, like I said earlier in the video, from my previous tournament experience, every time I attend these tournaments, just really good folks here for good games, and very friendly and enjoyable to play against. So walked away from this one feeling really good. Definitely didn't shake my confidence. It was a tough army to play against, and I'm very happy with how I did. So in terms of what I would change outside of having those Devourers on the Tyrant, the Biowars in this one didn't do as much as I would have hoped. There was more of an open table, so there was less opportunity to roadblock, and there was a lot of targets that I had to chip wounds down. There was those crawler things, I can't remember, the bloat drone, sorry. I had to chip off some mortal wounds with them, with the Biowars. Just they got kind of up in my face, and rather than have the opportunity to block, and Death Guard having that -1 damage, it really hurt the Exocrine and the Hive Guard. I mean, you can't tailor just to Death Guard, but Hive Guard really struggled in particular on this matchup. So yeah, so it was a good game. We'll jump into my third round of the day, my third and final round, and see where I ended up overall on the leaderboard. All right, so game 3 against Great Ants again. The awesome part here, though, was that it was a completely different style list than the first match I played. So it was almost like playing against a completely different army, which is really cool to see. So I'll go over the list here. So it was a Battalion Detachment that had 3 Grandmasters in the Nemesis Dread Knights. Then he had 3 units of 3 10-man units of strike squads, and then his heavy support he had 3 more Nemesis Dread Knights, and then he had 2 Rhinos for dedicated transport. So that was the list that he brought. So very, like I said, very different than the first one I played against. So like I said, each time we've kind of done these recaps, I apologize for the lack of videos and photos. However, I did snap an overhead shot of the table that we played on, so I'll kind of be able to talk about things a little bit more in detail and give you a good look at everything, unfortunately without the models, but that's okay. So the mission was priority target, which has kind of an angle line deployment. So at the top left down to the bottom center of the table was my zone, and then his from the bottom right up to the top center was his zone. So my priority target was objective 5, right behind the yellow crates, and then his was the I think it's objective 3. I see behind the 2 green crates with the yellow, or the red one on top. So that was his priority target. He also had assassinate and raise the banners high. I went with obviously my deploy scramblers and engage with that priority objective, which is just it's a no-brainer. Then we're back to hold 1 and hold 2 again, which is nice, going from the hold 2 and hold 3 for sure. So deployment wise, by those crates where my priority objective was, I set up my Hive guard there with the Zoanthropes, Neurothrope. The extra crime was hanging out just beside them, and then at the top of the table I had my Glands warriors, and at the bottom I had my other warriors, and then the Dimikaran, Tyrant, and Swarmlord were all just right on the line with the Biovores in the back by that big rock to zone out. He had 2 strike dudes in reserve, 2 units of 5 in what's it called, teleportation. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. So anyway, I won first turn, and similar story to the first game. It was just I was able to get table positioning on the table and board control right away. This was the one match where the Biovores really shine. So if you're looking at the hit on his side of the table on the right, the bottom objective, he had 2 of his Dread Knights there, along with a Rhino and some Strike Force guys in the back, shooting at one of the Dread Knights with the Biovores and moving them so I would miss. I was able to place 2 Spore Mines across the line there, so he couldn't actually move with them, and then I had another Spore Mine placed up on the top part heading towards his priority objective. So I boxed in a huge chunk of his army early on. Then between the Dimikaran, the Zoanthrope smiting in, the Exocrine, Hive Guard, I was able to kill off 2 more, the other 2 Dread Knights he had there, and then he also had 1 other Dread Knight in teleporting, and I think that's what it was doing. Yeah, and there's another, the one with the flamer. He had a flamer one. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Teleporting in with the Strike Force guys. So essentially, it was just it was all in its favor. It was just simply getting that turn 1 again with this list. I found having, I know you can't rely on turn 1, but when you get turn 1, the amount of board control I'm able to get with the Dimikaran, and then even the Zoanthropes taking a strong presence in the middle of the table and just smashing those smites out. My opponent was amazing. I really hope I get to play against him again. Good sport all around. The dice definitely were not in his favor this time around. He kept saying all game, I hate getting out psychicked when playing Grey Knights, which I thought was funny. Just the dice were going very good when it came to my Zoanthropes. Again, just the amount of damage they put out was really good. And the one thing I'll say though, out of all my opponents all day, he was the first that really put the pressure onto the Zoanthropes. He killed them, I think, down to 2 bodies on turn 3. I think that's what it was. I can't remember exactly, but he focused on that. I lost my super smite, but collectively I think they did 16 mortal wounds between using Psychic Scream and their smite at the end of the game. So they really shined in this match overall. Definitely did very well for me. The Dimmicaran, I lost him his turn 1, but his entire army had to shoot and kill the Dimmicaran, which again, the rest of my army was untouched. I did a ton of damage to him as well. And then Swarmlord and the Tyrant, they harassed his priority target objective, killing off all the Strike Force guys, and then the Lictor coming to the very top corner and actually had him zoned out completely with pretty much my whole army. So the only spot his strike dudes could come in was on those craters by his other objective. Although I did give him a pocket for one of the squads later on in the game, up by my warriors on the top left of the screen, but they were behind the building and it was just a little too late, unfortunately. But like I said, great. Good game overall for the Tyranids. The list performed exactly as I was hoping it would, and going out of this game, I don't think, based off this one game alone, I don't think there was anything I would change with the list. But looking at all 3 matches now, talking about that, there's definitely a few changes that we'll speak on shortly for the list overall. But yeah, each unit doing really well. The one unit that really shined in this game was the Hive turn. With just so many other targets that took huge priority over it, it was just able to fully harass, dump out the smites and Psychic Scream, and use its rending claws with Murderous size to kind of chew up whatever came its way. So, and with the Lictor popping up in the corner, I was able to snake in, and with Swarmlord and the Tyrant right there, they obviously took all the heat, and the Lictor was actually able to steal the priority target objective from him for 1 turn before it got cooked. But and then again, the Biovores almost the entire game. I had that end of the table completely boxed in until my Hive turn. I jumped in and started attacking things. So, like I said, it's just getting that turn 1. It was so huge, allowing the Tyranids to be very dominant with positioning in this match. So the final score we ended up with this one, I think it was 91 to 35. So great game, like I said. Just this entire tournament was fantastic, a good experience. It was awesome seeing the list perform as they intended. I was really happy where I had to play a Grey Knight army twice. It was a completely different style, so that's the one thing when I attend the tournaments. I love playing different style armies that I haven't had a chance to play before outside of the local crew here with Basement Wargaming. One thing I want to quickly mention too, just look at this table, how this gaming mat, the water, just a quick appreciation for the overhead shot. It's very cool. When I first saw it on the mat, I was like, I don't know if I like that style mat, but actually playing on it was very cool. Some sandy rocks here. I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, very quickly, the MVPs for my models units for the tournament, definitely would have to give it to the Zoanthropes for sure. The Dimmicaran, I mean, the Dimmicaran did exactly what he needed to and did a ton of damage when he was going. But for consistency's sake, I'd say the Flying Hive Tyrant was awesome. I really liked the utility role I kind of used it for. The Zoanthropes, definitely, I would say those two really shined, fulfilling the role very strongly and efficiently. The Dimmicaran, like I said, he did his thing. Was just full-on missile in this game in particular, than other times he did what he had to. I mean, fighting Mortarian's hard. But that's it. I really hope you enjoyed the clips and the shots I got of the event, and we're going to go into head back and look at the army, get to talk about a little bit of adjustments that I think it would make, and the final placing for my Tyranid force at the end of this tournament. So, like I said, there's so many other lists too that would have been really awesome to play against, and I hope I get to play against different styles of that in the future. They definitely, just like all these games, would have been very fun and
very challenging to experience different forces and test my limits with my Tyranids. So that's it. I can't wait for the next tournament. Let's go back for the recap here, looking at the army again.
All right, so there you have it. So that's the end of the tournament. With that third game wrapping up, on a whole, that put the Tyranids, my Tyranids in particular, in second place. So very happy with the showing with this list. Performed very well. The matchups that I had, I think this list was built very well to take on Grey Knights in particular. Playing them twice too, although very different lists, so definitely not the same game twice, which was awesome. They were built very well in that regard. The Death Guard game, absolute grind to the end. Even on the losing end, like I said, if it's a good game, I don't care if I win or lose. If it goes right down to the wire like that, I'm more than happy to be on either side of the coin. It was a great match, great opponent, very tense the whole way through. So, like I said, a couple mental mistakes there early on. It was an army I've never actually played before, believe it or not. I have hardly played. Chaos is the forces of chaos on a whole, the least played army for myself in particular, being that if you follow our channel, you see there's a lot of Imperium stuff and not a whole lot of chaos. No chaos actually locally yet. So yeah, so a little bit of a learning curve there, but it was no problem. It was like I said, good game. I am very happy with how the list did on a whole. But let's talk about a couple changes that I think I would make. There is a few adjustments that I would definitely make, having now played through all of the matches. So the first being, I think I would give the Neurothrope the cutting block. So like I mentioned, I didn't take Psychic Ritual once. Again, it was very terrain dependent. I kind of knew that going in, but looking at the points I would then gain from that, I definitely immediately would put one set of Devours onto the Tyrant. That is a must, I think, for clearing some of the chaff away, especially in that Death Guard. If I was able to shoot at the Poxwalkers, or even just knowing that I had some shooting ability to chip away at the cultists, kill off a fair amount of them, maybe he'd lose some to morale, I don't know. That would have helped, because again, it's an objective game, so I think having that ability or option would have been huge. I would have kept the Monster Shredding Claws, I think, on him, depending on how the points would have shaken up. All said and done, because I feel I always start with the Zoanthropes first for casting, so not a huge worry about not having the rerolls one. It's a little bit of a gravy thing with the Neurothrope, but I think I would be okay without it. So yeah, Zoanthropes on a whole, absolutely stellar. They did exactly what I wanted them to do. Like I said, there's too many other targets that were much more of a target priority for people, and rightfully so. I mean, if I play against a Dimmacairn, if I ever end up being on that end, I was certainly focused upon that before Zoanthropes, I think. Swarmlord did exactly what I wanted to do. Same with the Tyrant. Very happy with both of their performance. Tyrant's an absolute animal. Just so happy whenever I use that model, the dice go good for me. So Dimmacairn did exactly what he was supposed to do against the Death Guard. Just some unfortunate in there, but I was fighting Mortarion, so no huge loss there. The Warriors, I don't know if I'd keep them. However, staying Leviathan, absolutely they would stay in the list just to get that extra bit of synapse. But again, cutting that Neurothrope, I would add in a unit of Hormagaunts for a bit more forward presence to steal objectives. Because for my troop units, while I could use Metabolic Overdrive, having that extra speed on the Hormagaunts, I think would have made the difference. But on a whole, I'm happy staying Kraken. I wouldn't change the Hive Fleet with this particular setup. But again, snip the Zoanthrope, Neurothrope, and add in the Hormagaunts and the Devours on the Tyrant, and then have a few extra points, maybe just add a Warrior or something like that. Potentially. So yes, it was nice having the extra smites, but again, 18-inch range. I kept him floating by the Zoanthropes. Didn't want to put him too far forward ahead, so often he was out of range where their smite is 24 inches. So just keeping that in mind. Jumping over to the Chronos side, on a whole, I mean, the Chronos detachment is always well. I'd love to have an extra Hive Guard in there. That would be pretty sweet, just having some little gravy there. Oh, and then one other thing, I guess, with the Tyrant, I would switch the Resonance Barb over to this guy here. I only failed Symbiote Storm once, I think, the whole tournament, but it's just, there's a few times where it was close, like actually just rolling on the dot the warp charge for that. So It warp charge 6. I actually thought it was 7 the whole turn for whatever reason, but so put myself at a handicap. But I only failed it once to my memory. So yeah, but just again, getting that extra insurance policy, because if that doesn't go off, it's kind of huge. Biowars, how did they do? I mean, you just heard how they did, but would they get cut from the list? Honestly, I think I would keep them. I was very happy with how they performed. They did what they needed to do, be annoying. When they needed to chip down mortal wounds, they did it. And also too, just having them actually like in the very back field, because one thing with this list, I do have some long distance shooters, but for deep striking stuff, like I do have to have the Hive Guard and Exocrine a tiny bit forward, just so that way I can get range at everything. These guys are able to sit right in the back more or less and really zone out my deployment. So there's also that to factor in, which I really liked. Again, however, if I had a second Dimicaran, I'd probably have to give these guys the cut first when it comes to points, unfortunately. But as it is, I'm very happy with how they performed. So on a whole, successful tournament in terms of how the list performed. There was definitely some other opponents that I don't know how the list would have fared against, but I think on a whole, how I played the match and how I played the units was very well done. I'm very happy with my performance. And I definitely think NIDs are in a decent place competitively, which is awesome to see. They're definitely not top tier, but definitely not in the bottom, which is great because they're always ready to give a good showing. So, and that's the thing too. Like you never know like who you may play against in the tournament. Like I said, there were some other lists there that could have given me a run for my money, but again, I don't know because you never know how it will shake up until you play. But very excited to attend another tournament, play against the new people. That's my favorite part about this is all the people I played in this last one, all new opponents, all very kind and smart players and very enjoyable to play against. So there you have it. So second place for the Tyranids. Had I have beat that Death Guard guy, I would have been in the running for first. But again, losing by 10 points to a list like that, there's no shame in that. And plus, like I said, it was a great game against a good opponent. So lots of fun. Very, very happy with the end result. Gonna continue to tweak everything, and like I said, I got a hero duel coming. Maybe that'll make it in the competitive list. Maybe I'll have to try out Kraken a bit more myself. Again, I'm very comfortable with Leviathan. I think I play well with it, and with my current setup, it does perform decent. But always looking to try new things. That's a big thing if you watch my Tyranids on the channel. I don't like playing the same thing over and over again, even though in competitive setting, I guess you want to get very comfortable with your list, but I just like trying out new options and really trying to maximize use of the models I own and the different choices in the codex. So thank you so much for watching. Again, huge shout out to all the players who came out and to Todd for putting on the event and HFX Games. I can't wait to attend another one and continue getting more involved in the community, and hopefully again, schedule permitting, I actually can get down for some actual battle reports against some opponents, or even have some of the people travel up. Some people have expressed interest to come up to the basement for a battle report and get a game in with the NIDs, which would be amazing. But just have to see if the schedule can permit that. So I hope you enjoyed. Any questions you may have for me about my list or about the experience on a whole, please leave it below. Again, it's a ton of fun making these videos, and for me it's really good because I find it's also a great way to reflect on the gameplay and give me a chance to grow as a player too. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you in the next video.